City of Stevens Point Board of Park Commissioners meeting, recorded Wednesday, June 3, 2020.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the June 3rd, 2020 Park Commission meeting. And Ann, would you read the roll, please?
Frickman?
Here.
Glodowski?
Here.
Hall?
She's absent.
Kirsch?
Here.
McDonald?
Here.
O'Connor?
He's here, but he's
Yeah,
here.
there you go. Sure.
Shabilsky.
Oh, yeah,
Here.
Shabilsky, sorry.
Here. That's
Sure.
right.
Still here.
Slowinski? Sorensen?
Here.
And Zarazua?
Here.
Okay.
All right, I think that's it. Item number 2, the approval of the May 6, 2020 meeting minutes. Does anyone want to make a motion to that effect?
I'll make a motion to accept.
I'll second.
John and Wayne. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, how do we do this? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. The next item is a lease agreement with Northward Pedal and Paddle for 2 vacant buildings in Iverson Park for water and land recreation equipment rentals and concessions. Dan's got quite a bit of information for us on it and also provided some in our packet. So
Yes.
Dan, take over.
Excellent. So we do have Patrick Getterman here in the meeting with us tonight from Northward Pedal and Paddle. And as you recall, you guys were made aware of the commission a few months ago that Nature Treks would be vacating the buildings and not operating at Iverson Park. At that point, it was directed to open up an RFP, a request for proposal process, to see if we'd have anyone interested in maybe taking that service over. We did receive a proposal from Patrick with Northward Pedal and Paddle. The last several weeks, we've been talking through some of the logistic pieces. What you have in front of you is the actual agreement itself. For 1 year to start, ultimately from now until the end of 2020, in which Patrick would operate his business out of the 2 buildings in Iverson Park as they are currently. He's done his due diligence, talked with from our permitting department to health department, safety plans. He's been very, very thorough within his proposal. There's a couple, the major things of the contract. Ultimately, there's a rate for the summer months and then a rate for the winter months, very similar to how it used to be. And there is a percentage that the city would take from the net profits. So Patrick, I don't know if you have anything else to add, but city staff recommendation is that we look forward to working with Patrick and we recommend approval.
Thank you.
Boy, I guess I don't have to add much with Dan. So, yeah, I guess I would like to. Only thing I would add is I really do appreciate everything that Dan has done for me. From questions I've had, coordinating with people. So yeah, we're excited to be part of the Parks Department for sure.
Great. Do any of the commissioners have any questions or comments on this?
Well, I think it's great that someone's taken over that business. It's definitely a value to Stevens Point. So I'd move to approve.
I'll second.
All right, great. Is there any further discussion on it or any comments from the public? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Thank you. And
Thanks.
thank you, Patrick. I think it's going to be a nice addition to the park again.
Thank you, everyone. I really do appreciate it. Thank you, Dan.
Thanks, Patrick. Talk tomorrow.
Yep, take care.
Item number 4, the 2020 Donald Cops Municipal Pool Operation. Another situation where we have to have quite a bit of information provided by Dan.
So I will start this item to let you all know that last month, you'll recall, things were happening quite fast as the Park Commission was approaching, and this was not on as an action item. At that point, we were still navigating the waters with some of the area municipalities about what we were going to do based on the Safer at Home order. At that time, we did take an item before the Finance Committee because there were some financial impacts, as well as looking for recommendations from the alders that sit on that committee to see what we would do with the pool operations for the season. So at that point, the climate was that Safer at Home was extended through the 26th of May. And the Finance Committee that night motioned and approved not opening the pool until phase 3 of the Badger Bounce Back Plan, and that determination would have had to have been made by June 15th to allow the pool to open July 1st. Things that have changed since then. So the Badger Bounce Back Plan is not going away essentially, but as we're all aware, there was a reversal in terms of the by the Supreme Court in the Safer at Home and the authority and how it got extended. So the reason this is on the committee agenda tonight is a couple reasons. Number one, several different pieces of information have come out from the CDC, the Wisconsin Department of Health, as well as in our communications with the local Portage County Health Department. There also was a local order that came out. So city staff is here tonight to give you a quick presentation of what we have for options and to ask for direction on what we would do with the pool season if we are going to open or if we should close the pool for 2020. So before I ask Kate Gullickson, who is the manager of our facilities for the pool as well as the Willett Arena, to show a quick presentation, she'll share a screen here in a second. I do want to give you just background, high level. The Portage County Health Department has been in conversations with us. They have met with us and reviewed what we've been talking about and what we're going to present here shortly for a plan. Essentially, that we've been giving the acceptance and the green light that we can open with the Portage County Health Department. They've given us some guidelines. They've referred us to CDC guidelines, and they've shown us that obviously we need to do some more frequent cleaning, have to limit the bather loads, and Kate will get into some of the specifics here in a minute. With that said, the second source is the Wisconsin Department of Health. The disclaimer language that the Wisconsin Department of Health has put out, and I'm going to read it verbatim, is at this time, the Department of Health Services recommends that all public pools, splash pads, and water parks remain closed due to the spread of COVID-19. The third source that we've been looking intently and details that is the CDC. The CDC has two separate sections that relate to water, basically water parks, aquatic centers, public pools. The first one is the considerations for public pools, hot tubs, and water playground section. They give detailed steps essentially that say if you follow these guidelines, there's the allowance to open. In addition, they have guidance for administrators in park and recreation facilities in a separate subsection. And in that subsection, the detail states, keep swimming pools properly clean and disinfected. And then they give the protocol again, refer you back to their first section for opening those facilities. So the take home message here that we're going to lead into, Kate, if you want to go ahead and share your screen for your presentation, we're going to give you a real quick overview of how the city of Stevens Point could open their municipal pool. And with that, I'll just introduce Kate and ask her to go ahead and share her screen.
Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Perfect. Well, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Kate Gullickson. I'm the facility supervisor for the Parks Department. I'm going to give a quick brief overview of kind of our pool plan like Dan touched on. We've been in contact with quite a few local, state, and national officials about this information and would like to present it tonight to all of you. So let me go ahead. First of all, I'll touch on staffing. So to open our pool with our modified staffing plan, we would need 8 staff members on a daily basis. That consists of 6 guards and 2 cashiers. To open with that modified staffing plan, we would be closing the water slide, eliminating the basket rooms, and not having the snack shack available to our pool guests. Decreasing that staff will allow us to use staff in other capacities, such as cleaning attendants and additional guarding places according to our local officials. Closing these items will also decrease the shared touchable surfaces to clean in between those swimming sessions. Prior to COVID-19, just for a little information for everyone, we would hire approximately 16 lifeguards and 4 cashiers to round out our summer staff. We currently have lost 6 certified lifeguards and 1 cashier due to the unknown status of the pool opening. Since then, and since the Supreme Court has overturned that ruling and us kind of getting some different directions, we have lengthened those pool job postings, and as of yesterday, we hired 2 more guards and 1 more cashier to improve our roster numbers to be able to be open to the public for the 2020 season. So our total lifeguards is 12 and 4 cashiers right now. So due to our limited roster, that may cause us to have to alter our weekly schedules, leading to certain days being closed due to not enough staff. Pool schedule would look like wouldn't look like any other year. We may have to reduce or alter those weekly pool schedules dependent on staffing. Those changes also would be to the length of the sessions and the time of day those sessions would occur. That is because we need to add in additional cleaning time in between those sessions so that we can properly disinfect and sanitize to make it a safe environment for our guests to be swimming at the pool. So if approved, our targeted opening date would be July 1st. New procedures, if the pool were to be open, an altered schedule would allow, like I said before, time to clean and sanitize properly. We would separate the pool's entrance and exit. We would eliminate the deck chairs that we currently provide for guests and would allow them to bring their own chairs in, also decreasing that disinfecting time in between swim sessions and decreasing those shared touchable surfaces. Staff increased PPE, so we would be providing face coverings and then also the cleaning PPE or personal protective equipment for our staff members in order to clean and disinfect properly and to keep them safe. We would enact social distancing procedures in all areas of our facility. With that in mind, we would need to decrease the number of patrons or guests in our pool per session. So when we do the math and equate that, we would be able to allow 13% of our normal bather capacity in the facility at one time. So before COVID, we would be allowed to have up to 526 patrons at the pool in all 3 of the pools. And to social distance and to be able to have those walking lanes and safely social distance, we came up with the guidelines provided by our local officials. 72 would be the maximum number we would be able to allow in the pool at one time. So again, that's 13% of our normal bather capacity. And then the cleaning products that we would use, we would need to use more frequently, and also allow more time in between applications for them to properly work. Another slide here, just a quick synopsis of pools in the state that are either open or closed. As you can see on the left, pools that are currently open to date right now: Wisconsin Rapids, Wausau, 2 of their 3 pools as of right now. Further discussion per their Parks Director will be coming in the next few days. Weston Aquatic Center is open, and then the Stevens Point YMCA under a modified schedule. On the right-hand side, you can see Merrill, Schofield, Rothschild, Oshkosh, Onalaska, La Crosse, Appleton, Sparta, and Marshfield are all currently closed. So I'm going to hand it over to Dan to talk about budget.
Well, real quickly, as you guys can see, that was some high-level stuff. And I'm going to just let you know that Kate Gullickson and Greg Trudell from our team have spent hours going back, the last probably 5 weeks on this, every week, going through multiple scenarios. So as you can imagine, there's a financial impact of the pool in terms of expenditures and revenue. The details you've just been given are high level. We do have drilled down much further in terms of frequency and what those zones would be, what the travel lanes are. One thing that we didn't mention was that there is evidence, and they've supported it, that the pool water, because of the chlorine and things that are in it, that they don't believe COVID-19 virus will exist there. You can imagine there is a lot of touchable surfaces and the deck, as well as within the building and things that play a large role. But the water piece of it has been shown to be safe at this point. If you look at the pool, the take-home message here is, you can see we crossed out the June 13th opening. We need about a 3-week lead time to be able to turn on the filters, get everything rolling, as well as train staff. And this year's staff training will be much more involved than even a common year. The budget implication that really is the part that matters, that we want to share with you, is that we budget an $86,900 deficit for the pool. It's a tremendous service to the community, as you're all aware. That's why it's budgeted the way it is. If you look at where we stand today, however, we anticipate, because we'll need to reduce the number of patrons in the pool so significantly, that our revenue would definitely be down. If you look at it, it's approximately 25% projection of what we normally would be if we open for the first of the year. Therefore, the take home here is that our deficit we are forecasting would be $104,800, about $18,000 more than a standard year. The actual budgeted expenditures, we would be under budget. We believe that the way we change things, we're not opening as early, but we are still going to spend a good significant portion of it. But just so you see the full financial picture, it would be larger in terms of a deficit because we take in less revenue. But in terms of budget impact of what we're spending out, it would not be more. You'll also notice we did add $5,000 for miscellaneous PPE expenses, because we're going to have to continually make sure that we protect our staff. One of the biggest things that I'll give Kate and Greg credit for is, from the beginning here, they've been really diligent about how do we protect our team as well as the public. And they've done a good, ahead of time, they're ordering some of the masks and things that we're going to need. So take home message before we turn it over is, and Kate, if you got something to add, feel free to. We are at a point right now, and Kate, I'm going to have you just turn off your screen quick, could you?
Yep.
We are at a point right now that we believe we can open the pool. So we've been given guidance locally as well as the CDC that we've got enough information that we can adhere to, that we can deter and eliminate some of the areas that, well, we believe could cause or lead to the spread of COVID-19. That does not eliminate the risk, but it's along the guidelines that we're being given, minus what's come from the Wisconsin Department of Health. Would it look like any pool season we've had before? The answer is no. From not having the deck chairs to having to turn people away because we'd be at limited capacity, that is a real thing we'd have to deal with daily. And we've discussed and believe we've got options to address that. By and far, the big things to take a look at here are we comfortable with the lesser revenue, the impact on the budget? And that's a question I'll ask here from the commission of what we want to go. But we do believe that we can provide this service to the community, give our children, families, and our community members a place to go. So staff, right now where we're at is we've tried to do as much planning as we can to come before the committee tonight and ask you for a recommendation to either tell our staff we are not going to open this year, or tell our staff we are planning to move forward with opening. And if you would recommend that this evening, it would require some guidance and the Common Council review later this month, but it would allow us to tell our staff, okay, we're bringing you in starting next week, and start moving forward with the planning process to open for July 1st.
Liz, I have a question for Dan, if that's okay.
Yes.
So Dan, I guess I'm curious on two questions. First of all, I am supportive of opening the pool. I guess the couple of questions I have is in terms of potential volume and competition from non-city residents who don't have access to a pool. Has that been discussed at all? And is there anything that we can do to guarantee that we're opening the pool in the best interest of our community members? And if we've got a number of communities that are within a reasonable driving distance, do we run the risk of having community members not being allowed in because somebody from somewhere else is there already?
So we would have options, and we talked really about 3 scenarios ultimately, and I'll let Kate further expand, but an option could be to say that only city residents would be allowed in the pool facility. And we've talked through if there's any legality parts of that we have investigated. We believe that that's something that could be a real possibility. Really, our second option would be a pre-scheduled reservation. So we have X amount of spots. You call on the phone, we allow you to reserve it. Some logistical issues there are what if people don't show up? And then obviously a third option is similar to what we're seeing in a lot of other places of, so many go in and then we wait until somebody leaves. Kate, was there another option I'm missing, or is that a pretty good summary of those options?
No, those were the pretty much the three that we've pulled from other pools, you know, kind of what they're doing. That was a concern in a lot of other municipal pools, was how do we limit the non-resident you know, swimmers. But yeah, we would have to further investigate that if approved.
And I think to that point, I think if we said we're moving forward, that's definitely something we logistically could have together fairly quickly based on maybe some feedback here tonight as well.
Mhm. Are there any other comments or questions from any of the commissioners?
Yeah, I have a question. So Dan, with the budget, it said for the July 1st opening, that was the revenues were projected with 35% attendance, right? And we're looking at 13%.
Well, it's a little bit tricky when you look at the math because we do things like open swims on the weekends and stuff. So based on how many sessions we have, i.e. if we shorten sessions and offered one more, we might be able to turn the pool over a couple more times. So ultimately we said, while it might be 13% at one time, if we limited time periods or we turn the pool over, say 3 times a day rather than 2, we anticipate we could probably get to about 35% revenue usage.
Okay. And then another question, the cities that Kate had on the slide of ones that pools are closed, are those ones that are just currently closed or they're closed for the season?
Those have been ordered closed for the year.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else on the commission?
Yes, please.
Oh, okay.
So sort of picking up on what Alder Zarazua just said, hearing that about that list of other communities does kind of get my attention in terms of if we open, what do we know that they don't? And I guess I had a similar question. If there could be more explanation about the 2 different recommendations from state and from CDC, and if there's a way to reconcile that. You know, the deficit in itself doesn't concern me as much, but this percentage, I want to make sure I understand how this percentage works. I start to get concerned if you know, we're opening and it's almost like having to win the lottery to get entrance, right? Like if who it's serving is like a really small slice, and I realize that 13% is against capacity, you know, rather than against kind of the usual demand. But you know, that's kind of my consideration in terms of the numbers. Thanks.
Okay. Other folks?
Yeah, I have a question. Do you have numbers for a typical swim session from, let's say, last summer?
Kate, you want to weigh in on maybe a typical day with the 2 sessions combined?
Yep. With 2 sessions, we average between 80 and 120 swimmers per session. That's kind of dependent on the day of the week and the weather and such too. So usually it's right around there what we average.
So, and we're only allowing 70, did you say 72?
Correct.
So so like for a light day at the pool, it's kind of normal.
The only piece of it, yeah, it's not like it's incredibly, it's less obviously. And the other piece is locally, there's a local order about 50 for mass gatherings. So we based it on square footage of a radius of a 6-foot circle. We would have some families, as you know, where there's no restriction in terms of them having that bubble or ultimately the safety. So that's where there's a little bit of, we're going to have, you know, we'd have to, we tried to be on the low end of it to see how it would go, and also to work with the health department to see if that could be increased or need to be dialed back.
Yeah, it's a great thing for families to have in the summertime. So, you know, there are a lot of other public swimming areas as options. And so I would think that a lot of people that would be more concerned or worried about COVID would probably opt for those options and go to the beach instead of the pool. So I think you'd see less people trying to go to the pool, even if it's open. That's just what I would think, but.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from any of the commission?
Yeah, I'd really like to see us try it open. I mean, if things really got bad, you can always close it, I guess. But I was biking yesterday. I biked through Iverson, and man, there were a lot of people out swimming there on the beach and in the water. So,
Exactly.
People are out there. They want to do something, and yeah, I'd like to try to give them something this summer.
And you already have all the staff all ready to go, and you're basically ready to go. All you need is for us to say yes. Is that basically where we're at?
Correct. And I'll tell you, as you see, we've lost some guards. The longer we don't decide, the longer or the bigger the risk we'll have of not having the staff and having to close anyways.
And Dan, this has to go back to the finance committee too, doesn't it?
Correct. So because of the different piece of saying basically we're going to have less revenue, if tonight the recommendation was to say, okay, we want to use the modified staff plan, then at that point we would move it on to finance Monday. However, we would already begin to bring staff in and start the process. And if something got changed later, then we at that point would have to do something different with our staff. But we are committed to try and give our staff an answer of yes, we have a job for you or not, because we have to be fair to them. I mean, some of these people that work with us, they've been really, really lenient and good, but they're waiting to say some of our college students, they need to get going on some income as well, which I totally understand.
Chair McDonald,
Yes.
can I make a motion to accept the proposal from staff to open the pool as suggested?
That's John O'Connick. Okay, that's
Yes.
a motion. Do we have a
I'll
second? Is that Mike?
Sean.
Oh, Sean, okay. Seconded by Sean. Do we want to have any comments, or are there any folks in the public that wanted to address this issue before we take a vote? I think Trish Baker had something she wanted to say. Trish, are you there yet?
I am. I'm here. So I just want to say, I'll make this really quick. I'm a crazy swimmer. I have bought an annual pass to the pool probably 19 or 20 or 21 of the years that I've lived here. I have to confess, I live in Park Ridge, so I'm one of the people that Wayne was talking about that doesn't actually live in the city, but I buy the annual pass because it's available to people that don't live in the city. Mostly I watched tonight because I just wanted to see what's going to happen. I'm like on pins and needles waiting for you guys to open the pool. And whatever you decide to do, I will completely respect that. I totally believe in the democratic process, but I'm hoping that you will go ahead and open the pool for the adult swim and also for the children. I think that when I think about the kids in the community and the social emotional outlets that they need, and we're running low, and we're talking about this in the school district as well, they really need a safe place to spend time, a safe place to recreate, and I think that the pool is probably the best bang for your buck in Park Ridge. I'm sorry, in Stevens Point. So anyway, with that, I'll mute. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to say something, and thank you for your service on this committee. It's a lot of work, and thanks to Dan for all the work that he's done. So you guys have a tough decision here. Thanks.
Thanks, Trish. Any other comments from the public? From any of the other attendants tonight?
I would just say also thank you for all the work and looking into how to open it safely. It looks like a really great plan. So thanks.
Madam Chair, if I could hear a little bit more, I appreciated the answers about how these numbers compare to the usual demand, and that was extremely helpful. The last time we had a discussion of this, we were focused very much on that aspect of coordination, Director Kramer, with you and your peers. And so if you could say a little bit more, because here we are looking at a decision that would not line up with a lot of those peers. And then also, if you could say a little bit more about, right, the state health seems to be an outlier in all this. Okay, but you have been looking into it, and if you could explain kind of what's going on there. Thanks.
So two things then. Ultimately, with the surrounding communities, once things changed with the Safer at Home, which didn't change any of the criteria we were evaluating the first time, it changed significantly what local communities' perspective was on it. And a couple of the committees that met fairly recently here in like the last 2 weeks basically talked with their local health department, similar to what we did. They checked on CDC guidance and they used that. Things even like the Wisconsin Dells water parks opening, and said, okay, these things are happening, and it seemed to drive each municipality to start making decisions based on the facts they had at hand. So you'll see now we did have a whole region ultimately. It's definitely not that case anymore, depending upon different parts of the state. Some of them that closed pre the regulations coming out from the CDC and some of the changes going on that happened. So those decisions were made, they've stuck by them. So there's not a great answer to say why. Before, we were early on in the process, everybody was kind of interested in that process. Once it became more of I'm not going to say a free for all, but as we see the guidance isn't consistent from all three levels, it left more interpretation. As some municipalities said, we're going to open, it gained steam in some places. And some places, like for example, I don't know if you saw Wausau, they said, if we are to open 2 of them, we're going to take the staff from the 3rd just to be able to staff out the modified plan. So I think there was much more of the longer we've been in COVID to say, is there abilities to, and as things like restaurants opened, more stores opened, people are out and about more. I think this is just from my perception and conversations we've been in, the perceptions changed a little bit about who's maybe comfortable, who's not comfortable, some of the precautions you're taking based on pre-existing conditions. All of that's factored into some of the municipalities. The outlier question that you asked, I don't have a great explanation. All I know is that, as we read them, as they've come out, you're going to see the same discrepancy when we move on to organized athletics. It's almost verbatim, some information that doesn't mend. And when we've talked to the local health department, that question's been asked, and it's not ultimately an easy answer. I don't have an exact, this is why. I don't think that reasoning might exist currently.
Thank you, Dan. All right. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, Liz, sorry. Just one thing that just keeps coming up to me is that, and there's not a lot of research on it, but the 6-foot social distancing is from a point of view of if you are standing and you're indoors. So it's not accounting for wind, and it's not accounting for physical, strenuous activity where you're breathing harder. So that's one thing that I think about with this, and with the other item of organized sports, of the possibility of being more likely to contaminate others if someone was a carrier. I understand hopefully the chlorine water can kill anything that would come in contact with it. But I know too, we just want to make sure that we're making a decision that's safe for our community, not just for them to have we want them to have a safe place to go, but we have to make sure it is a safe place to go. So that's the only thing that I'm conflicted in this decision. Thank you.
Yeah, it is a difficult decision, that's for sure. And Dan and the staff have really put a lot of time into it to, I think, make us feel a little bit more comfortable whichever way we vote. So we should probably do a roll call vote on this one. So Ann, would you call the roll and we'll vote aye or nay?
Gladowski,
Aye.
Kirsch,
Aye.
McDonald,
Aye.
O'Connor,
Aye.
Shabelski,
Aye.
Shore,
Aye.
Slowinski. You're gonna unmute yourself? Are you still with us?
He's
Maybe
still
he's
there.
gone.
He's still on the line, but I'm not sure.
Maybe he's gonna chat it in. I am unmuted. We can't hear you. Can you just chat your answer? Okay.
Yep.
He said aye. Sorensen,
Aye.
Zarzua,
Aye.
and Freckman.
All right, well, that sounds like it was a unanimous vote. All right, thank you very much.
So, Chairperson, just so everyone knows, then this will be an item that is on the Finance Committee meeting on Monday, and they'll have a discussion on the financial impacts of it, and then we'll start putting things in motion based on that and the council recommendation. Thank you.
Jeremy, I'm the chair now, but it's because it's a Zoom meeting. Dan is doing a lot of the work, so we're kind of coordinating it. Item number 5, organized activities and sports in city parks. Again, that's another item that you've received quite a bit of information on, representing quite a number of different organizations, from Horseshoe, disc golf, softball, baseball. Dan, can you do a summary for us?
I can. So I'll start here in the same place. So when the Safer at Home order was expired, in conversations with the mayor and the city leadership team, at that point, we did not allow, because of the group gatherings at that time, before Portage County had put out the 50 max, we were talking about 10 or less. At that point, we stopped any organized play or practices and reservations of our athletic fields. So as of today, as people have contacted us, we have had one instance where we've actually had to ask a team, 2 teams, to leave a facility. But what our groups, to their credit, and I think we have a representative from each one of them in the organization, they were very proactive. So when they contacted my office, they said, we'll do what we have to do to see what this would work out with and how we could do it. So long story short, you see several documents in your packet of plans. Return to play is what they're structured as. They have been shared with Gary Gerke at the health department. He has commented back on them and reinforced the 50-person maximum, reinforced the social distancing and the practices that we've got from the guidelines, but has approved of those plans. Each organization has looked at their structure, their timeline, and they're asking for approval for the city park department or our parks department to open these facilities following the local guidelines. One more thing I'll add here. Again, 3 levels. Portage County Health has reviewed and approved, given some additional guidelines with 50-person maximum, contact tracing some of those pieces. Wisconsin Department of Health, disclaimer language again, that was posted on their website. At this time, the Department of Health Services recommends that all youth sporting events planned for this spring and summer be postponed or canceled due to the spread of COVID-19. CDC has 2 separate sections again. They've got a guidance for parks and recreation facilities. That one states postpone or cancel organized activities and sports. However, within about a week and a half, 2 weeks of that one coming out, the timeline's a little bit gray, they came out with a consideration for youth sports section. And underneath that section, they gave guidelines about high risk, low risk, medium risk, things like traveling teams, tournaments. So they came out with criteria to say, if you're going to allow it, here's how you can do it safely. So based on what we have there, again, there's some conflicting information. However, locally, based on what they've got for guidelines and guidance, these organizations have demonstrated saying we are in a spot where we believe we can play. Not that liability drives these decisions, but I do want to share the information because we've been involved with a lot of the conversations. The city, as owners of facilities, has things like recreational immunity. We also have abilities to post signage about things like CDC guidelines, social distancing. So from the city's facility preparation standpoint, we don't have a lot of additional items to take on because these organizations do a lot of the groundwork, the organization, the putting on the waivers, the organization with the referees, umpires, all of that type of thing. So with that said, we really have representatives from a couple different facets. We have adult sports. Matt is with us. We have youth sports between SPIBA, Point Fast Pitch. We have kind of the intermediate adolescent sports with things like there's a Legion representative, or I think they're called Stevens Point Baseball Group right now. We have things like horseshoes with us here as well, and disc golf. All of them take place outside. So at this point, what the city staff has done is we've tried to look all 3 sources. Locally, we're being told it's okay. As you can see, and you know, there's people on these fields now in unorganized ways, and also in a city yard, for example, on private property. there is really no stipulation. So right now, this stipulation of no organized play is on public park property only. I'm not speaking for school district or anything about that nature, but if you go into a private yard, for example, backyard, at that point, there's things that are unenforceable. So with that, I guess what we wanted to present to the committee this evening, staff is looking for direction to say, can these groups institute these plans and begin in their phased approaches that they have, taking the protocol that they have, or are we to keep these facilities closed to the public longer?
Right.
Dan, I guess question on the 50, we've been dealing with this in my day job. That 50, is that inclusive of both teams, parents, visitors, or is that 50 visitors and then 20 to 30 kids or adults and teams? Can you clarify what's involved in that 50-person cap?
So ultimately what we're being told is, say it's a single field facility, or to speak to Fred's horseshoes area, if it's a single area, that 50 person wouldn't be inclusive of spectators, coaches, participants, and anyone around.
Thank you.
Where it gets a little bit more not as cut and dried as, say, a place like Zenoff Park. There's 3 facilities that are spread out, and there's ways to have egress and ingress routes between those facilities where you can separate them. There, I think there's some common thought both directions to say, could it be 50 on field 1 in the corner and 50 on field 2 that's 100 yards away in the other corner? And I believe, based on our conversations, that the second scenario would be allowable as well. However, if it doesn't mean 150 in one facility commingling. 50 is what they're saying when they're commingling, and contact tracing is a piece of this. The health department's been very clear about rosters, spectator lists, so that if something were to happen, they know who was where and they can follow up on the protocol they have in place for these type of activities.
And if I could follow up with that in terms of rosters and tracking, who is ultimately responsible and what is the consequence if that doesn't happen?
The organizations have been told those rosters and lists need to come through their organizations. Most of them actually do the roster piece already. It'd be the spectator piece that would be new. And in terms of responsibility, I am unaware, and I would have to ask for clarification of if somebody wasn't tallied, if there's a consequence. I believe that the contact tracing protocol they have basically just follows, here's the list, and then they start working through their health department objectives at that point.
Does anyone else have any questions for any of the groups or total?
I have a question for Dan. I know there are like 6 different groups. So are we looking at them individually, or will we have to approve the whole thing, all of them at once, or?
So ultimately, the way it's on the agenda is it could be approved to basically, you could give me the direction of staff to say that we want to continue to evaluate the plans with the health department before they're allowed. Some communities I can share have said youth and adult are different. Most of them are saying they're the same. Ultimately, what I'm looking for is direction to say, yes, if the plans have been reviewed and they take care of what the health department is taking care of, we're going to allow the 50 people, and then we'd mirror what the health department advises us if they increase it, decrease it, or say don't. Or I would ask for the direction if the discussion is going a different way where we believe that that's 2 separate items, that I get direction on if adults are treated differently than youth.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I'd like to thank everyone for showing up to the meeting. I mean, these are our partners, and they've been running these programs for years and doing the city great service. So, hope we can make this work.
I guess, Dan, I have one more question in terms of there is one proposal, and I'm guessing it's probably the softball association in terms of concessions. And there's only one. In looking at these, are all, and I would agree with Mike, well written, well thought out, good plans, I think, that we want to consider. But I'm curious, for all of you that are representing your organizations where concessions are involved, one of the things I noticed in one of the proposals is that the organization was only going to look into sneeze guards. And if you look at a number of the guidelines and recommendations at the county, state, and federal level, sneeze guards where there isn't an opportunity to have a reasonable social distance are almost a best practice, if not strongly encouraged. So I guess if there are concession sales in any of the park facilities, do we have any latitude, instead of making that something an organization is going to investigate, that we strongly advise that if they have a concession stand and they're selling food, that a sneeze guard's got to be part of the precautions they take?
Yeah, I
Dan,
think
can you respond? Okay.
absolutely. I think that that would be a wise decision.
Okay.
Kind
Can
of
I-
along those. Oh,
Make a comment or no?
Matt, do you want to state your name and address, please?
Matt Disher, 1009 Park Street in Stevens Point. As Mr. Sorensen brought up, with we're the ones that we're going to look into sneeze guards. Putting those up, from what we've investigated, might be feasibly cost ineffective. If you look at our concession stand at Xena Park, from one end of the counter to where the other person stands is 6+ feet away with the counter. And there is screen in the way. We're looking at different options. We put it in there because, we're looking at maybe the option of a clear, like shower curtain. But if we had to put up plexiglass, right now plexiglass is through the roof, and it wouldn't be it would cost effective to put it up.
Matt, if I can, Matt, I appreciate that. And I think we've been investigating it as well. Plexiglass is kind of the go-to, but we have seen examples of shower curtains. I guess my concern is, and I played softball at that diamond for a long time. One, it's going to be real easy for people to stay on top of each other. And two, it's going to be real easy for someone to sneeze through that screen. So I appreciate the fact you all are considering that. And again, looking at grocery stores and gas stations, food places, there are a lot of places that are using that as yet another barrier. So that is something I guess I want to leave out on the table as something that one is a not a recommendation, but a concern that I want people to consider, to kind of think about.
While we're on that topic, I'd like to ask too, Matt, would the people that are working the concessions be wearing face masks?
The ones that serve food, yes, have to. And I'm pretty sure the other staffers we have will wear them. We can make a recommendation.
Isn't that something that you have some control over since you're running it?
We do. Like I said, it also comes down to costs involved, which something we're looking into. But like I said, the 3 girls that we have that are for sure coming back, they all wear them all the time anyway. So it's not really a concern that I've seen. But yes, for sure the people that are going to be cooking food will have them. It's just a matter of if you're running around from the cooler to the front cooler to the walk-in cooler and around, they might not have them on all the time, but in front of customers, yes.
I have 2 more issues regarding the Xena situation. Number 10 in your plan was encouraged to maintain 6 feet social distancing. And there's a difference between encouraging and enforcing. And then number 12 said attempt to limit to 50 people. And I think if our guidelines are 50 people, you're going to need to find a way to enforce the 50 people. Or this is something where the health department is going to tell us we can't have that facility be open for those activities.
Well, and the reason I worded it the way it is worded is this is based on our adult people playing there. When the youth sports play there, they run their stuff as well. I guess from a standpoint of looking at it when we put this together, it's really hard for me to tell somebody, 2 teammates that are drinking a can of beer that you need to get 6 feet apart. You guys are too close. Or what happens when a team comes in and at one field, there's 53 people. We're in the outdoors and they spread out. There's plenty of room up and down the field and in the bleachers for that 50 people to be more than spread out. And especially bringing in a team of 10 guys or 12 guys to go buy a case of beer after they play softball and then tell them they can't sit next to each other. That's more of the way the wording is because I can try, but it is a recommendation. And that's things that other people have said to me, that these are recommendations and I can try to enforce them. But if I throw somebody out of the park because they won't stand 6 feet away from somebody, that's going to start ruining reputations, and that could negatively impact the sports at that facility.
Other comments or questions from any of the commissioners?
I'm sorry if this is already touched on and I missed it, but you're limiting like the attendance, like the players are up to 50 people, but you're going to limit people who can just come and sit and watch, or am I wrong about that?
Our attempt is to limit, and we'll post stuff, is to limit each field to have 50 people. Like I said, you have, say, 12 people per team. It's usually not an issue during leagues. There aren't a whole lot of people that come out during leagues. It's just the teams that are there. The one time it would be a concern, and like I said, we would post stuff, is when we run our state tournament that brings in 34 teams or 38 teams into the community.
Yeah, I guess maybe I was thinking more of like the youth sports. I mean, again, we're just talking about this one specific league, or are we talking about all organized activities right now?
I was explaining our league at Xenoff Park, the adult slow pitch leagues at Xenoff.
Yep. I played in that one. I played one game in that one.
So the agenda item right now, or what staff is asking for clarification on, is as a whole. However, I think it's an important question to say, is that just local leagues or is it tournaments? Because people coming from outside the community versus that is two things. So I think the committee can come at this from both directions or included in the motion. But there's a local league, and even the youth, they can speak to it, where they play teams within the region, school district-ish. And then there's tournament play, which is people coming from outside our community. And I think that's probably a worthwhile point for the committee to touch on here before you make a motion one way or the other.
Dan, I'm wondering if we shouldn't split this out some way rather than having a motion on the entire thing, because I think it's really easy for disc golf or horseshoes to stay within the guidelines that they've established. And for the youth programs, they look like those are pretty well spelled out as well. Is it possible to break it into two?
Yes, should be able to. Yep.
Chair McDonald, I have a comment. I know in looking at all of these, they're different. There's a lot of similarities, but I did notice quite a few mention not having the bleachers open at all to spectators. Just wondering if that's something that we could consider as expectation for all the groups. It just seems like it would help limit congregating in that one space if everyone is encouraged to bring their own chair. Another thing that I think it's only in one of them talks about no spitting and no seeds. And I know that's kind of synonymous with baseball, but maybe not for 2020, just because that is spitting particulates out into the air. And I know usually in baseball, you're maybe not supposed to be on the ground a lot, but the chances of you coming into contact with that spit is going to increase the risk. So those are my comments. Thank you.
I will add too, just so you know as well, is say the commission tonight said we want to close bleacher facilities. From an enforcement standpoint, I do want to just put some word of caution on, even say for the example that was mentioned earlier, 53 people instead of 50. I think what is really before the commission tonight is, our organized activity is going to be allowed. Numbers are going to vary to certain percentages. I think it's pretty clear cut to say, if there's a tournament with 34 teams, that's over the limit, right? But I think where there's a gray area is, say there's 65 or 70 people spread out over a facility. I would argue unlikely that enforcement's going to be utilized or available, counting heads or, how those people are, provided they're following their plans. So I guess I would just ask the commission, when you look about some of the particulars of it, from an enforcement standpoint, we don't necessarily have staff. In almost all cases, we don't, at these organizations. So the organizations will be tasked with it, but some of the tools at their hands in terms of, say, telling somebody they got to leave the complex, or 55 or 60, there is going to be a little bit of a gray area if the activities are allowed. So keep that in mind when you talk through, I guess, any sort of stipulations or maybe changes of the plan as well.
Mike.
If I may,
he was first. Dave was first.
David, okay.
So thank you, Chair. Picking up on Oliver Saras's idea, and then your comments just now, the intent of not having the bleachers used does seem, in good line with what we're going for in terms of preserving social distancing. And I understand what you're saying about the difficulty of having a presence to enforce it. But as Makira said, the way that people could deal with it is to bring chairs, and that would potentially kind of again be in line with social distancing. So taking your point that it won't be possible to always be there, do you think the rule makes sense?
Is that a question for Dan?
Yes, please.
I think ultimately our organizations run a program, and I think it's difficult for city staff when we essentially either rent or let them book the facility to say, you either keep bleachers off hands or we tell you can't do it. I think, if I look at this objectively, if they've done a return to play plan and the local health department says, we're good with this plan, we need to say, put it in action. And I guess, in my opinion, based on our interactions with these groups, they've done a lot for us for a lot of years. As long as they follow their plans, we've done all we can. And I think if we get a complaint at that point, I have to get involved, and I will. And I think if they're following their plans and the organization leaders, they all have board of directors. I think if they say we've evaluated it, with their social distancing, some of them might even do cleaning. I think there was mention of cleaning some equipment, some of dugouts. I think in that case, part of the piece of saying, when they put their own plans together was so that we don't either set unrealistic expectations or vice versa, don't say you're not doing something that they may want to do. So I know it doesn't answer the question exactly, but I think if I'm envisioning how we work and interact with these groups right now, we're going to have a lot of eyes on these groups too. There's going to be parents and community members that will be involved. And I would envision complaints being what would require modifications. And the other piece is, as we know, COVID-19 is not left. So if things would spike or things would happen, not only my office, but the health department, and it could be state involved as well, could be involved closing things or changing things too.
I guess that would be my
Thank you for
comment.
that. Thank you for that. I mean, I understand what you're saying, that we'll know if the problem arises that different families are bunched closer together than they're supposed to be.
Chair McDonald?
Mike, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I'm perfectly willing to approve everything for local activities, local kids, local adult athletes out there. Just wondering how far we're going to go, with out of town tournaments. I mean, it's, bringing people in here. Yeah, I mean, Portage County is pretty clean really on COVID right now. But if you start running tournaments and people come from other places, we're kind of like a walled city for a while here. You bring a lot of people in, we have more risk of spreading it. So,
okay, thank you.
Upon looking at, reading those things over, it looks like they'd have to get approval from our park staff and the health department to run tournaments, correct?
Is that correct, Dan? If they wanted to run a tournament, would they have to get approval from
with out of town folks?
I would suggest that is included in the motion tonight, if that's the way we're headed. I would say that's what should happen in terms of, because again, if we can't control where teams are coming from, but I would encourage the committee, if that's the way we're headed, to put that in the motion.
Okay, thank you. John O'Connick, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I guess I'd like to make a motion. I agree completely. If we're just having Stevens Point local teams, we go ahead and accept it. But if we are bringing people from out of the area, I think that's a whole different situation and needs to be addressed.
Okay, so is that your motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion to accept what staff is requesting, with the council or the commission approving any tournaments that we would want to have this summer.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that, yes.
Who was that?
Something?
Sean,
Like
yeah.
to-
Oh,
Can I say something?
Sure. Please identify yourself, name and address, please.
Sure, I'm Bobby Opiola, 5440 Canary Drive. I'm
Is
speaking
that Canary Drive is Clover?
in Stevens Point.
Okay, thank you.
I'm speaking on the part of Legion Baseball. We're looking at playing teams from Rapids, Wausau, Clover, and stuff like that. Would that be okay? Not necessarily a tournament, but bringing a team in for like a doubleheader type of thing. So something to consider also.
That was also going to be my question was, Park Commissioner O'Connor stated Stevens Point teams. So I was going to ask for delineation if that's school district or if that's just city. I think that will play a role for all the organizations because they probably do have people traveling in from Junction City, Rosholt, all those type of places.
How about we make a 50-mile rule?
I would say a county would be better because I guess, we'd have to put addresses in a GPS to know the 50 mile. I mean, my guess, I would prefer it if the commission would consider something county related or.
my question would be, is it better to do a distance rule or a multi-team rule? Like if one team's coming in for a game or a doubleheader versus 8 teams coming in for a tournament.
I think that would make some sense because I understand what Bobby's saying. I mean, they have, we have one team in Stevens Point, so they have to play somebody. And, normally if they were playing teams that were like in the Wisconsin Valley, I mean, I don't foresee a problem there. It's just, I don't think you can have like the, we have the Don Friday Classic, on the 4th of July and that, that's probably not going to be doable this year.
I guess.
What do you think, Bobby? Is that reasonable?
I think it's reasonable. I mean, I just want to get some baseball for the kids. So if we just keep it local and just have double headers, I don't need tournaments. But if we can get them games.
I guess, Bobby, we're talking about standard league play here, correct? Even though in the standard league play for SPIBA or for girls fast pitch, I mean, those are primarily teams. But with post 6, it's an established league play. We're not talking about bringing in teams from Illinois or Michigan. So we're really talking about local teams in an identified structure, correct?
Well, we don't have a league per se as of right now. There's 20 organizations that meet every Thursday. We're just trying to set up games between each other. So if you want to put a limit of just the Valley, that's something at least I can work with. But there's teams from like Oshkosh and Appleton that would like to play us. But if that's not possible, I'm willing to budge wherever. So,
is it still the Sixers or is this an outside group now?
The Sixers board is running it, but it's just not an American Legion because American Legion isn't sanctioning it.
Chair McDonald?
Yes, John O'Connor.
I guess I have a concern if we start moving out to Appleton, Oshkosh, Green Bay. I mean, we have to accept that there is this COVID issue and we're allowing this, that we have to make some limits. And I guess I would, if I want to do Portage, Wood, Marathon County, okay, but I guess beyond that, I have a concern.
Do you want to amend your motion?
Yes, let's, so how about we extend that and state that we would allow Portage County, Marathon County, and Wood County.
Can I reread the amended motion, Chair McDonald?
Please.
So the motion by O'Connor then would be that Stevens Point teams are allowed to practice and play games with limits of 50 people, with the limit of Portage County, Wood County, Marathon County being the perimeter, and that any tournament play would be reviewed by the Park Commission before approval.
That's my understanding. John, does that summarize it well?
Right, that's perfect.
We need a second on the amended motion, Chair.
I'll second that again.
Okay, it's I'm not going to try to repeat
I have
that
one
motion.
question. One question for Bobby. Is that satisfactory to you?
I mean, it's something. I'm just trying to think about the number of teams that I can get. I mean, I'm not sure if Marshfield is in Wood County or Marathon County.
The other thing,
It's Wood County.
What's that?
Would you
the other thing I
include
was thinking,
Wapaka?
if in your case, if we could, for your team, if we could put some type of amendment on there to say let you play like an Anago and Merrill. I mean, those teams are up north and they're pretty isolated from stuff too. So, you know, kind of what would be like the Wisconsin Valley League.
That would be sufficient for me. If you did the Valley.
John, would you be willing to amend it to
Sure,
their
that's
team,
fine.
to include teams, schools, or teams, cities who are in the Wisconsin Valley League?
Yes, like I said, my concern is more Green Bay, Appleton, Oshkosh going down Milwaukee, Madison area. I think that's where I think we can all agree this is much worse over there, and we would prefer not to have that come in here.
So just to make sure I've got the motion correct, then that limits of Portage County, Wood County, Marathon County would also have a last piece of the Wisconsin River Valley. Is that what I heard? Conference?
Right.
Yes.
Okay, did Alderman Slawinski, did you have something to add to that?
Put something in the chat, Liz.
His chat says, could we include Wapaka and Lincoln and Langlade?
Is in Merrill, Lincoln County?
I believe so. Anago's Langlade.
No.
So that's fine. In Wapaka, that's what, 3 counties around, so.
So I guess that comes back then to the amended motion. Is it, Member O'Connor, is it Portage County, Wood County, Marathon County? And are you saying Wapaka, Lincoln, and Langlade, or are you asking to keep the Wisconsin River Valley Conference in?
So where does the Wisconsin Conference go beyond what we just listed?
Bobby, could you weigh in on that?
He's muted.
Okay.
Yes, well,
The furthest north would be Anago and Merrill. So whatever counties those would be in would be the furthest north and east, I guess.
And how far east?
Anago would be the furthest east. So I'm not sure if that's Shawano or I'm not sure what county that's in.
Does that include Wapaka? Does Wapaka have a team?
Wapaka did contact me, would like to play us, yes. So if you'd include Wapaka in that, that'd be fine. So any Valley Conference school and then Wapaka County would be great.
Do you have that, Dan?
do you see Alderman Slawinski's comment? He was suggesting that we eliminate counties that have hot spots, which might, you know, there are some areas that are more heavily tourists.
That certainly is going to change over the next couple of months. The hotspots are not going to stay where they are now.
True.
I guess I can make a suggestion here. If it's one league that we're struggling with here, would it make sense for them to come back with a separate plan of who they want to play? And I guess, Bobby, what's your timeline right now?
Other teams would like to play games starting July 1st, if possible. All the organizations are having meetings like this, so some will not be able to play any games and some will. So I'd like to get the boys out practicing if possible, even if we just do our own teams. We can get
I would recommend ultimately if you kept the original Portage County, Wood County, Marathon County buffer, and I guess if you wanted Wapaka in there, and then you could direct staff to let Bobby's radius be reviewed by Portage County Health and let it be pending on them proving whoever they're coming from.
Sounds good.
So I guess I'll read that. I guess Member O'Connor, is that okay? And I'll read it back to you if that's the case, if that's your motion.
That'd be fine. Thank you.
Okay, so then the amended motion would be motion by O'Connor, the amended piece, to amend the motion by O'Connor that Stevens Point teams are allowed to begin practicing and playing games with limits of 50 people for a maximum, with a surrounding radius for teams that are going to play of Portage County, Wood County, Marathon County, Wapaka County, and that any teams outside of that would be part of the plan that would be reviewed to come into our community. And that would go past the Portage County Health Department for approval.
And would that also include the tournaments then?
I'm sorry. And the last half of that was that any tournaments would be reviewed by the Park Commission prior to being authorized.
Correct.
All right, sounds good. Thank you for all the work on that, people.
I guess, Dan, in terms of for tournaments, I just want to clarify, they would come solely to the Parks Commission, or do we need to engage Portage County Health, and especially if we know where teams are proposed to come from? I know we're getting way in the weeds here, but at what level are we making this decision as a Parks Commission on our own? And at what point are we consulting with others to make sure we're making the right decision on tournaments?
Yeah, ultimately, I guess where it started with allowing things on our fields to then saying the surrounding communities can come to our fields. I guess one scenario that wasn't discussed is, does that mean then that, and this would be what it would mean, if a Wood County facility, let's say a different city, said we're not allowing it, they could come rent our fields.
My thought would be no. It's really just for the current user groups.
And if that was the intent by saying Stevens Point teams only, we can enforce it that way. But this is a very broad motion right now that's 4 counties wide.
Oh.
Hey, Dan. What is the current status of these other cities, Wausau, Marshfield, Rapids, on this item?
I'm aware that Marshfield is, as of June 1st, is allowing organized activities. Wausau is still discussing it. I believe right now they are not allowing it, and that's the extent of what I'm aware currently.
Okay.
What if we backed up and just allowed these organizations to play and had a special amendment for that, like the Legion team that could play Wisconsin Valley teams? Would that be more clear?
I guess before any more amendments happen, I would encourage us to vote on the current amendment and then go back to the original motion, just so that this doesn't get too many motions on the table.
All right, where are we then?
So right now, I think we're waiting on a second on the amended motion that just got, we just relayed out. So if the second can confirm.
Is there a second?
The amended
I'll
second.
second it again.
Okay. So then right now, Chair, it would be voting on the amendment, the amended motion, the amendment to the motion on the table. That would included the Portage County, Wood County, Marathon County, and Wapaka buffer, as well as the second half inside the original motion.
All right, do we need a roll call on this?
I would.
Okay, let's do a roll call vote, please. And Ann, would you call the roll?
Sure. Kirsch,
Aye.
McDonald,
Aye.
O'Connor,
Aye.
Shabalski,
Aye.
Shore,
Aye.
Slowinski. He's an aye. Sorensen,
Aye.
Zarazua,
Aye.
Freckman,
Bob, can you say that vote one more time, please?
You said aye.
oh, sorry, Gladowski,
Aye.
all in favor.
Okay, so that means now the amendment to the motion is passed. The motion as amended, which is the full, what I stated here, by the motion as amended by O'Connor, is that Stevens Point teams are allowed to practice and play games with limits of 50 people. The surrounding radius is Portage County, Wood County, Marathon County, Wapaka County, and that any tournament play would be reviewed by the Park Commission before it would be authorized. So that's what's right now has a first and a second, would be up for a vote unless there's another amendment coming here.
All right, so we need a vote on the original motion then, correct?
Unless Mike was stating something about an amendment, so that was the only other piece.
Well, if for the Legion teams, we allowed the Wisconsin Valley teams that played in the Wisconsin Valley last year to play the Legion team.
I guess the only thing I would ask then is to play devil's advocate for Matt and the Adult Softball Association. And Matt, I'm not going to speak for you here, but I don't know if you have any teams or other organizations that would encompass those surrounding areas. Would you be asking for something similar?
Well, I think for leagues, we might have a couple players from Wood County, Marathon County, just on teams that play. Usually there's a couple people that'll come down from Wausau because of friends or come over from Wisconsin Rapids. But for leagues, that would work for us.
Okay, folks. Dan, are we ready for a vote?
We would be voting on the motion as amended, but it does not include Wisconsin River Valley right now.
Well,
I'd like to, is there a second for that?
For the original motion?
So the motion as amended has been.
Well, just to add the Wisconsin Valley teams for the Legion.
So then that would be another motion to amend the original amended motion to include the Wisconsin River Valley. Is that correct?
Right.
And that would need a
Wisconsin Valley teams that played last year.
I'll second that motion. Mike, you want to make it?
So, and for the minutes.
Well, I'd like to.
Okay, we've got it. So, and for the minutes, if you can add, Mike amended the amended motion to include teams from the Wisconsin River Valley Conference from 2019.
And that's for that specific team, though, right? For the Legion team or whatever it's called now?
Right.
Okay.
For the Legion Conference that Bobby is involved with. And that's been seconded by O'Connor. So now the amendment to the amended motion needs to be voted on. There's been a first and a second.
All right. Can we have a vote on that?
McDonald.
Aye.
O'Connor.
Aye.
Schabelsky.
Aye.
Shore. Shore. Slowinski. He had voted in the comments. Sorensen.
Aye.
Zarazua.
Aye.
Freckman. Godowski.
Aye.
Kirsch.
Aye.
All right. Thank you. What was that final vote?
Unanimous, I believe, correct?
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
So
right.
Just before you move on, to the organization representatives, thanks for joining, and we'll be in touch as well tomorrow.
Can I ask a question? So in regards to tournament play, is that to be approved by Dan or by this committee?
This committee.
Come on.
So how do I find out about getting a tournament approved that we tentatively have slated for 2 weeks away?
Contact me in the morning and I'll walk you through it.
Okay, thanks.
Outside, I got to plug in.
All right, item number 7, to award 2020 Gerke Football Stadium Exterior Restoration Project to Holton Brothers out of Grafton, Wisconsin, in the amount not to exceed $53,600.
Chair, we missed one item number 6.
Oh God, sorry about that.
It's okay.
I'm wishing things away, I guess. Okay, sorry about that. Number 6, lodge and facility rentals in the city parks.
Okay, so this item, you see a 1-page reopening plan essentially for lodge rentals. So in your packet, you'll saw that right now, when the Safer at Home happened, we canceled them or rescheduled all the way through the 26th. Right now, under the current order that we had set, similar to the other 2 activities, we have nothing on the books until this weekend. We have been in communications with the health department on the lodge and facility rentals. The Portage County Health Department has approved the 50-person maximum with our cleaning procedures and our signage. Wisconsin Department of Health has given guidelines for opening public facilities, which we incorporated into our cleaning procedures, just like we're doing for our public restrooms, for example. The CDC has also got recommendations for cleaning and disinfecting your facilities, which is also guidelines we're following. So all 3 have limitations. The biggest limitation on this option is that 50 people is the local order, although it be it non-enforceable, that's involved. So at this point, the place where we sit here is that we are recommending that we move forward with the phase 1 up to 50 people. And after the 50 people, we would follow the local order. We would clean them before everything that we do daily. And ultimately the group would still be involved with cleaning. We would just step up our cleaning procedures beforehand. We would give CDC recommendations out. They would acknowledge them and see them when they come to the counter for the keys, as well as signage at the facilities.
All right. Any comments or questions from any of the commissioners? I don't know if we have any general public that wants to make any comments or questions regarding this. Okay. All right. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the recommendation of staff to open the facilities.
Okay, that's John O'Connor. Okay, anyone for a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Wayne, was that?
I don't know. I think.
Or Jinx, I don't know. Jinx, yeah.
Yeah. But Matt, he's on the board now. He beat me to it.
Okay, Matt's on it. Okay, it's Matt. Okay, great. We have a motion to go along with the staff's plan on the lodge and facility rentals in the city parks. Can we have all those in favor? Please say aye.
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 Those against, please say no. All right, it looks like that's unanimous. Was there anyone that I missed that did not support this, wanted to vote against it? Okay, we're good.
Chair, I have one correction I have to bring up. That mistake was made in the last item.
Okay.
So if we can go back to item number 5, the last vote was on the amendment to the amended motion that passed. We
I was wondering about that.
We do need to vote again on the amendment. So the amendment to the amendment motion, so the original motion as amended still needs to be voted on.
Oh, sorry about that.
Nope, that's my
Okay.
fault. The original, that's completely my fault, not yours. The original motion that's been amended now includes Stevens Point teams, the allowance to play with limits of 50 people, with the limits of Portage County, Wood County, Marathon County, and Wapaka County, and that that Bobby's organization is also allowed to do the Wisconsin River Valley Conference from the teams of last year, and that any tournament play is reviewed by the Park Commission. That needs to be voted on yet.
All right. All right, let's have a probably roll call vote on that one as well. Ann?
Okay. Yep. Breckman. Sklodowski. You're muted, Mike. Okay, thanks.
Aye.
Kirsch.
Aye.
McDonald.
Aye.
O'Connor.
Aye.
Shabilsky.
Aye.
Shore.
Aye.
Slowinski. I turned off my chat.
Okay.
Let's see. From the final motion. Okay, so he said aye. Sorensen.
Aye.
Zarzua.
Aye.
Thank you. All in favor.
All right, great. Now we could move on to wherever we were. I believe it was number 7 regarding the Gerke Field exterior restoration of the stadium.
Yes, so in your packets, this is a capital improvement project. We had 50,000 budgeted. We did receive 2 bids. They were not very comparable, and that we did vet them to find out why that happened. The bid that was very close to budget was from the contractor that has done tuck pointing for us in Iverson. They were familiar with the project. They actually worked on this building many years ago. They have looked at it a number of times. The other bid that we received, the contractor had only been on site once for the mandatory walkthrough. So we met with the low bid, talked to them about the scope of work to make sure they have an understanding. And staff is recommending that we do award to Holton. You'll notice in the packet, the photos are in your of what the areas are.
Yes.
You'll notice the worst one is on the south end of the stadium, and actually the photo doesn't do it as much justice. If you walk up to it, you'll see that it's actually starting to bulge outward a little bit, some of the stonework. That's the worst. There's actually going to be almost a complete rebuild of a portion of that column to make sure it doesn't fall. The other areas outlined are similar. There's some shifting of the building that's caused some cracking, as well as above the main arch entry that needs to be done. In the capital budget, this is actually broke out to be a couple-year project because it is large. So you'll notice in the bids, there's a lineal footage price given for approximately 1,000 feet of additional tuck pointing, as well as caulking. We wanted to be able to see what we're going to have in this building over the next few years if we have to do more work. Long-term for this building, because it was built, I think, in 1948, I believe is what it's stamped. There will probably be some investigative work about foundations and things of that nature. We're not there quite yet, but we are headed there when these structures get that old and you start to see some of the cracking. So what staff recommendation is to award to Holton Brothers. There is a reallocation necessary because there's $3,600 that is not in the original budget. However, we had the pool budget come in on budget, which was great. We had very minimal change orders for some inspection, and the Piffner Pioneer Park project is just about buttoned up, and we've not had any change orders there. So we're, if you look at the recommendations 1 and 2, it's to award to Holton Brothers in a not to exceed amount of $53,600 and to reallocate $10,000 from the contingency fund that we had allocated towards the pool and Piffner. So it's not additional borrowing to cover this project's $3,600 and leave 12% contingency of $6,400. Side note off those recommendations is just that there still would be almost 2,000 should we hit a little bump here at the end of Piffner. So we're not leaving that project high and dry.
All right. Any questions or discussion on this item?
Madam Chair, I'd like
Yes,
to make
David.
a motion. I represent the district, including Gerke Park, Gerke Stadium. If it would be okay, I would like to make a motion to both accept the bid and reallocate the funds as recommended. If that's permissible, doing that together in one motion.
Okay, Dan's shaking his head, so yes, I believe it is. And can we have a second for that motion?
I'll second.
Got it again.
Second. Got you this time, Matt.
Okay,
You got
we
it.
have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you.
And that will go on to Finance Monday as well, and then the council, and then the project ultimately would kick off after the 16th.
Great. All right, director's reports.
Okay, so you'll see in your packet, the first thing I just wanted to give a real light update. I sent you an email about some COVID-19 updates. I will assure you that the Park Rec and Forestry staff has really answered the call, as a lot of organizations have had to in town with remote teleworking when it first hit, to our staff transitioning back into full-time hours working in multiple remote sites. Our admin assistant, Ann, who's with us tonight, did a tremendous job holding down our payroll records and all the things that we had to do normally in the office remotely, which slow internet was definitely challenging. But again, I just want to let you know that they really answered the call over the last 10 weeks, and we've already transitioned now. Everybody in my department is back in. We are open to the public already on Mondays and Fridays with the doors open for key check-in, key checkout. We're by appointment because we're here. If somebody knocks on the door, we're not turning them away. We're just trying to limit some of the contact if we can. We do have a plan then to up those hours to probably 25 here as soon as it looks like it makes sense, and then to go to full 40 as soon as we can for the public. But we are available the entire 40. You can do a lot of things now online with the reservation system, which I'll talk about in a minute. The Park Rec and Forestry Department in May, earlier, if you remember, in May, we adjusted because we lost some revenue in terms of our lodge rentals. We actually took our scheduled overtime that we typically spent on weekends, and the crew, again, I'm going to give them a lot of credit because it was different. It's probably never been done in a long time. We actually shifted where they covered the weekends in an 8-hour shift and took a day off during the week, so we didn't have the overtime expenditure. And again, that's majorly different operations than we used to do. And I just want to say that the guys did a great job doing it, and they've answered the call. And now as we hit June 1st, and now we know tonight that we're going to move forward with rentals, we'll go back into our scheduled overtime for our lodge rentals so we can clean and do the things that we need to do for our recommendations with the CDC and local health department. We did also hold off in May to try to limit some expenditures on our seasonal hires. We essentially hired only the 2 we absolutely had to have and held off till this right after Memorial Day to bring the rest on. We are now staffing back up so we can get the lawns mowed and be back on task. But those were, again, trying to do some cost saving measures while we were balancing some loss in revenue that we typically get in the month of May. we were excited to roll out, and unfortunately it would have been at the forefront, but our online reservation system, again, I'm going to give Ann a ton of credit here. We couldn't have done it without her in terms of all the things we were balancing. She was able to focus on that and get it up and running for us. Kate Gullickson also played a huge role in that. And we do have that open to the public. So you can now view facilities, which we had before, but now you can pay for them and you got it. You get the receipt and everything set. It's really something we needed, and it's been a great job. And again, the staff has done a great job getting that up and running. On the forestry side, we're into flower planting season, which people really look forward to. Our Paul and Jonathan and Todd take great pride in getting that up and running. So you'll see that as you go through different parts of downtown and the parks. McLaughlin's another big one as you go by here on the main road. So that's starting. We are doing some fence line and infield maintenance as we're getting ready, and now even more so with knowing that there'll be some play starting. Our playground repairs, while we had playgrounds closed, we did patch some of the areas for Cash Playground where the surfacing was breaking. We had some posts and things that need to be upgraded to keep them in the safety protocols. Playgrounds were closed underneath guidelines all the way until last week, but we did work with the health department. We did post signage as of Friday morning. Those have been opened. We do not sanitize them. The signs state that, but very similar to picnic tables and things of that nature in our parks. Our playgrounds are open now. When we closed them, I'll just tell you, people were tearing that caution tape and they were using them already. So we tried to look at this. We based it on some of the other communities around us, as well as we got Portage County Health to weigh in, and that did happen last week. We're continuing to work with volunteers to try and nurture the prairie planting at Kosakowski Park and try to see if we can get that established. That was planted over the winter or late winter towards spring. The KB Willett Arena is working with a vendor to install some automation controls for our pumps through a grant at the Finance Treasurer's Office through energy and green efficiency upgrades. So we're hoping to have that done soon so we can scale down pumps and all the motors when we're starting to make ice, which should result in some cost savings is our hope. So we hope to have that ready for the fall. We're working on finalizing bid documents to replace some rubber flooring in the Willett. That was a capital project that was scheduled for this year. So I anticipate next month, you guys should see that bid in front of you for recommendation of award, provided we get bids. And I just want to reiterate, I mentioned it earlier, Kate, Greg, they spend a ton of time on the pool planning. I mean, if you can imagine how quickly we summarize that discussion tonight, it doesn't do them justice. For every Friday, they briefed myself at 9. We'd go through things in details, and they'd spend the next 5 to 7 days just coming up more on the phone, talking to communities. So I just want to make sure I highlight how much time they really spent on that to even have an opportunity. And now we'll see, and we'll work hard to try and make it a reality based on the 2 committees it's going to. The pool filter and lint pop project I mentioned is done. So if we are able to open, which is the direction we're headed, we anticipate things being ready to rock and roll. And that's in. We just got to pay the final pay app, and we should have a good pool season, not have the mechanical failures we've had in the past. Some unfortunate news at the Union Cemetery, we were doing some tree trimming and took the archway sign down. You may have seen this on social media. It was actually stolen while we did the tree trimming. So that is no longer with us. We're trying to find it. The PD's involved. We're hoping it wasn't cut down and recycled. Who knows what happened to it exactly. We're hoping maybe a guilty conscience would make it turn back up, but it hasn't yet. The flagpole was replaced at Union Cemetery. We have had some graffiti issues with everything going on, and obviously there's been a lot of adolescents in our parks, and at least we anticipate probably with adolescents or children of some sort. But Iverson Park was painted. We had some issues with Bucol Park where people had gotten into the restroom and into the beach house that's been vacant with some graffiti, but we've got most of those things repaired. And again, the PD's done a great job helping us out, trying to monitor those things. We're installing Roadway. Little known fact, you may all know this, but the Parks Department somehow takes care of median irrigation on the streets. So we have a crew member that spends weeks, a few of them, going into the street manholes and taking care of that piece for the streets, really the streets in the city. So some of the greenways that you see in our medians, Todd Pliska does a heck of a job. And there's a lot of repairs on those areas through the years as they deteriorate and get older, but keeping irrigation on our median system. So that's going on right now. Grass cutting's in full swing. This time of year, you can't keep up with your own yard, much less trying to mow 100 acres of parkland. But we're trying to do best we can. Scott and his crew are trying to catch up with our seasonal employees. Piffner Pioneer Park irrigation, we believe we'll have water flying by tomorrow. Then there's just some seed restoration work, and then we'll see ultimately how that turns out as it grows back in. And again, this year was rare. Normally there'd be heavy traffic on that already, and we don't have that, so we're trying to take advantage of it. I do want to let you know one other thing. A request has come across my office for usage of lodges for free, ultimately from the Boys and Girls Club, to see if they could add some childcare and some of their operations that they traditionally do in their building, but now they're limited by quantities into our facilities. we've been working pretty closely with them, trying to find a solution, even going as far as offering open air shelters for free. We'd love to be part of the solution if we can. And we've tried to juggle our policies in terms of not waiving fees for lodge rentals, as well as what our expenditures are for trash removal and cleaning them. They've got some proposals about them potentially cleaning. So we've come to a proposal, ultimately 3 options: a free option to try and help, a reduced cost option on another scenario, and another reduced cost option. But we do have expenditures that are involved. So I don't know where that's going to land, but ultimately that was a request that came, and Chairperson McDonald and the mayor have been working with me as we've been working through that process. So aside from that, COVID time has been really busy for us, and we'll have a lot of work here to do now with the organizations and our lodge rentals, but we're taking it day by day and trying to get back to what our normal is right now.
Wow. Any questions for Director Kramer?
Thank you.
Hey, Dan, I noticed one thing. I've been biking a green circle a lot. I have not seen the geese down at Piffner as much as in the past. Have all the people scared them away?
Yeah, I think the numbers on the green circle are like 2 times what they normally are. So maybe that's the case. We did notice that the number has increased the last week and a half to 2 weeks, but we're continuing to monitor. But yeah, it'd be great if they didn't come back in the same numbers they were.
Oh, great. Any other comments or questions for the director? Okay. Dan, thank you to you and your staff for all the work that you put into the pool project information and all these other requests that you've received with the COVID situation. It's been really given a lot more work to your department, so thank you all very much. So number 9 is adjournment. Anybody move to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Mike. A second?
Hurry up. I want a beer.
I'll second.
All right. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
putting up
Hey,
with it.
good night. See you
Good
July
night.
1st.
Bye.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.